You picture a garden, perfect grass, perfect light, a tree with an apple hanging from it, waiting for someone to make a mistake. That's the version you were handed. But the real story is far stranger and far older than the picture in your head. Open Genesis and the apple isn't there. It never was. The text simply says fruit from a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Somewhere between ancient Hebrew and centuries of Latin translation and European art, that fruit became an apple. Why? Because in Latin the word for apple and the word for evil are almost the same word, malus. A pun became a painting. A painting became a memory shared by millions of people who never opened the actual text. So, what does the garden really say? Genesis 2 places it in a very specific location, not a floating fantasy realm. It names rivers, the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, the Euphrates. Real rivers, the kind archaeologists have spent a century tracing across Mesopotamia. This wasn't written as myth in the way you think of myth. It was written the way someone writes down a place they believe truly existed, with the geography to prove it. And Eden itself. The word likely comes from a root meaning delight or plain. Some scholars connect it to an old Sumerian word for a fertile plain. That single detail changes everything. This isn't a walled-off paradise cut off from the world. It's a description of the most fertile, life-giving land known to the people writing it down, the kind of land where a river splits into four and every direction leads to abundance. Now think about the trees. There are two named trees at the center of the garden, not one, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You almost never hear about the first one, but it's there before the fall, and it's there after, guarded by cherubim and a flaming sword turning every direction, according to Genesis 3. Ancient Near Eastern art is full of this same image, long before Genesis was written down. Sacred trees flanked by winged guardian creatures appear on Assyrian palace walls and Mesopotamian seals. The writers of Genesis were drawing on a symbol their entire region already understood. So maybe the story was never really about a piece of fruit. Maybe it was about a choice between two ways of knowing. One tree offers life, freely given, sustained, dependent. The other offers knowledge seized, taken on your own terms, at your own timing. The Hebrew phrasing suggests the couple didn't just eat. They reached for something they believed would make them like God, deciding right and wrong for themselves. That's not simple disobedience, that's the origin of a very human instinct. The desire to control your own moral compass instead of trusting the one who set the boundary, and the serpent, not a devil in a red costume. The Hebrew word is nachash, and in Genesis it's described as more crafty than any other wild animal, one creature among the many God had made. Only later theology layered Satan onto that image. Strip that layer away and you get something closer to a cautionary figure representing chaos, wisdom twisted into deception. A recurring symbol across the ancient world from Mesopotamian serpent gods to Egyptian iconography. What if the fall was never really about a garden being lost? What if it was about a boundary? God set one limit in an otherwise limitless place. Everything was given. Only one thing was withheld. And the entire tension of the story lives in that single restriction, the same tension that shows up again and again through Scripture. Abundance offered, one boundary set, a choice made anyway. Consider how the story ends, not annihilation, exile. Adam and Eve are sent east of Eden according to Genesis 3, still alive, still capable of working the ground, still bearing children. The punishment is separation from unearned life, not destruction. That distinction matters. It reframes the entire narrative from a story about permanent ruin into a story about consequence, distance, and the long road back. So the next time you picture that garden, picture it differently. Not a fairy tale with an apple, a fertile plain with 2 trees, a boundary, and a choice that still echoes in you every time you decide what's right on your own terms, instead of trusting a limit you didn't set. You picture a garden, perfect grass, perfect light, but now you know what was actually growing there.